Let's talk about Emily in Paris. So, in honor of Emily in Paris Season 3 coming out, I figured we'd jump on here to chat a bit about Emily in Paris. Now, why do I enjoy talking about pop culture? Why is pop culture relevant to me? Who is this guy? Why is he talking? If you don't know, I did a degree in media and communication over at Erasmus University Rotterdam here in the Netherlands. And my specializations were media culture and society and media and entertainment. So it was really my focus area, and a lot of what I focus on in the work that I do academically and in now even my master's is focused on how stories and ideas are represented within media. So yeah, I figured it was important in honor of Season 3 to discuss how, at least to me, ideas within Emily in Paris sort of reflect the reality of what it means to be an expat in a new place. Now, what do I mean by that? I view Emily in Paris distinctly as two separate arcs within two separate seasons. Yes, the premise is the same, and I think it's best to start with the basic premise of the show, which is the idea that Emily, this American girl from Chicago, very smiley, very bubbly, very energetic, has to go to Paris to fill in for her boss after the giant, I believe it's the Gilbert Group, is a pharmaceuticals company, acquired a more luxury marketing company, Savoir, in Paris, and then Emily has to go take over for her boss who just found out she was pregnant. Now, very early on in the first episode, we get this idea that Madeline, Emily's boss, is very excited to go, and she's trying to utilize her French. Apparently she has a master's in French, and Madeline was really the person that was supposed to go.
I'm here to prove that a master's in French does not go to waste.
This is going to be amazing for you.
Oh, I have been dreaming of moving to Paris forever.
Well, that doesn't happen because apparently some perfume by one of the brands in Paris makes her sick. That's how she realizes she was pregnant, and then Emily has to go. From there, we get this whole first sort of euphoric feeling. Oh, I'm in Paris. Everything is going to be great. I feel so much joy. For a few minutes at least. And then down the drain Emily goes. She struggles with connecting with her new co-workers.
I'm Emily Cooper from the Gilbert Group in Chicago.
You are? I'm sorry, I don't understand. La fille américaine est là.
You lost me a bonjour.
You create the disease, then you treat the disease, and then you market the treatments of the disease.
Well, perhaps stop eating.
There is no money in that.
They all feel really disconnected from her and interpret.
Let me apologize for speaking English. I did Rosetta Stone on the plane, but it hasn't kicked in yet. Your name, monsieur?
My name is Luke.
Yes, Luke.
Why are you shouting?
Her attitude is being very saccharine, very sugary, which I've experienced as someone who presents quote-unquote American attributes, personality-wise, according to Dutch people at least, that type of attitude can be very saccharine and seem fake, seem constructed, which I really felt transitioning into my life here, and really sort of was this aha resonance bell kind of moment. So basically, she engages with her co-workers. Her co-workers don't really connect with her. They view her as sugary and fake. And then she gets confronted with all of these very French norms about work. Like, well, technically they're not norms, they're stereotypes if we're being very honest. The idea that they take long breaks. The idea that no one really does much of anything. But slowly but surely, she tries to connect and finds her sort of footing. And I think that really starts with meeting Mindy, which is her best friend in the show. And like the first character we see Emily connect with in a major way.
Je suis désolée. Est-ce que je peux vous en acheter un autre? Sorry, I don't speak French. American? Yes. But did you think that I was French? Honestly, no, I was being polite. You look American.
And I think Mindy really represents almost the idea of the quote-unquote expat bubble. We've all had that first friend we've just met with who's also an international living in the city and really felt this connection to a sort of a kinship an almost siblinghood of, hey, we're going through the same thing, through this connection. And then we already see that Mindy is really a bit more established than Emily. Maybe not 100%, you know, she mentions the struggles with her work visa, but she works as a nanny. And then I think there's the restaurant scene, which is really heavily establishes this whole Emily doesn't get it versus Mindy kind of does, with the whole steak scene and the whole it's underdone versus the chef really likes to make it that way. And that's when we get sort of that connection with the neighbor she met at the beginning, Gabrielle.
Ugh, this steak isn't cooked at all. Excuse me, pardon. I ordered this medium and it's still kind of bloody.
Elle aimerait son steak mieux cuit, s'il vous plaît.
Yeah, what she said.
If there's me, steak is correct.
Well, correct for him, but not correct for me.
I suggest you try it.
Maybe you suggest you cook it longer? Yeah, I'll take yours.
No,
You take mine.
come on. The customer is always right.
And there's this sort of establishment in Emily's circle that everyone has a lot more stability and experience than her. And you sort of see Emily go through that tumble and stumble within the first season of like, hey, what's up? I'm figuring out my place. She fucks up a lot at work, honestly. I think there was a storyline where she loses an expensive watch. She fucks up a dinner reservation because of how dates are written in France versus the United States. And it all sort of culminates in her being fired.
We have a fashion designer without a fashion show, which is almost as meaningless as an American who doesn't speak French at a Parisian marketing firm.
Sylvie, let me just talk to him.
You are fired.
While on the side, she's still exploring new relationships, finding new romantic adventures, trying to settle her life on that side. Which again culminates in her sleeping with one of her friend's boyfriends, Gabriel.
I didn't want that to be the last time that we saw each other, and I'm gonna miss you so much. And
in this case, her new French friend Camille, who was really presented as this almost epitome of the French girl. Poised, elegant, blonde, perfect, but lovable, and really sort of took Emily in as a friend.
And you, visiting from the States? I live here now. Wow, I just heard myself say that out loud and I don't even believe me. Emily. Camille, enchantée.
And we sort of see Emily's story about struggle, of this adjustment into her new life, both as a professional, but as a person. And I found that to be quite relatable. You know, we all have missteps depending on how different the cultures we come from are. I know for sure I've had my own missteps with Dutch culture, the Dutch directness we've talked about, different approaches to relationships, even different approaches to communication. I think I saw this, I think it was a book. No, I saw a LinkedIn post about a book about how like different cultures communicate and how that in of itself influences business negotiations. And I think Emily in Paris, while on the surface seeming like a kitschy, funny Darren Star show, a la Sex and the City, is really an in-depth exploration of this idea of the person moving abroad and finding your own identity. What's most interesting about Emily in season 1 is that she projects a certain sense of confidence. Like, I know what I'm doing. I come from this big pharmaceutical marketing company. And it's funny how there's that clip from episode 1 that really brings her down. I feel like throughout this entire season, Emily is grappling with ideas of her identity. She has this certain perception of herself as this American professional girl who's here to enjoy Paris, who's here to have some fun, who's here to maybe work here and there, but I don't think she's very open to that changing. Her identity in the first season really felt fundamentally close to where she's from, which I completely understand. Obviously, when you move somewhere, especially if you're new, you try to hold on to what's familiar, but it's interesting to watch that evolve in a character with her mannerisms, with her explorations, especially when we look at what happens in season 2, when we look later on. What's also quite interesting is how she engages in all of these different little relationships and explores the concept of relationships in France, or at least the concept we're presented to, or presented as relationship in France, which is this whole sort of casual, I'm gonna cheat on my wife thing, her being flirted with back and forth by different clients, ending up dating, I think it was the nephew of Pierre Cadieux, one of their fashion clients. Just quite interesting to see how, while that may not necessarily be 100% true, it fits into that whole story because it's an idea that we've projected onto Parisian life as this sexy, fun place to be. And I think Emily's experience embodies that it isn't, but also the transition from, oh, this is a cool place I come to for a bit, I don't know where I'm going, to a more established, sort of rooted journey, which we see her take later on. So it's just been a very interesting exploration, I guess. And I think it actually gives you a lot more depth of layers within the show that you may not notice if you're not very used to looking at it from this lens. Moving into season 2, we get this much more centered Emily, I feel. Yes, she's grappling with the consequences of her actions, aka sleeping with her best friend's boyfriend, which, yeah, isn't fun. I feel, at least overall, we get this more centered, stable Emily, who's now integrated a bit more into Parisian life. And what's interesting is she goes from being this person who judges and pushes away and projects this false sense of confidence.
Do you have any idea of what you have done?
Me?
Fashion designer without a fashion show, which is almost as meaningless as an American who doesn't speak French at a Parisian marketing firm.
Sylvie, let me just talk to him.
Towards the people at Savoir, to really one of them, someone who wants to be involved, someone who wants to be connected, someone who wants to protect Sylvie and Julien and all the people that she really worked with and connected with. And that's really, I think, a good example of Emily's transition, at least on the professional side, from season 1 to season 2. But that's also why I feel like I've talked to a lot of my friends who've seen the show and they really didn't like the second season as much, because it's no longer that story about that fish out of water feeling. It's become a lot more of a sex, romance kind of show where people fuck and then things go wrong and then things get sad and friends fight over a guy and she realizes she's in love with him and then that doesn't really work out and then she's sad and then it's just become more generic, I guess. Well, the first one, while seeming just a funny show about being a fish out of water on the surface, had a lot more personality and depth to it. I'm not saying the second season was bad, but I personally really enjoyed it, but it was very much centered on the romance narrative aspect, if that makes sense to anyone watching. But we also see her learning French a bit more, at least trying, making more effort. And she had that shock of failing her first class, because obviously we can see from the first season that makes sense narratively in the sense that she didn't really care. Now she's at least doing a bit better, as far as we can understand. We're presented with this, at the end of the second season, this idea of should I stay, should I go? And really, after a good balance of positive work from Emily, getting that new client, I think Grégory Elliot-Dupré, and then really pushing for Savoir's agenda, protecting Savoir from Madeline and trying to be like, hey, we can make a deck. People don't understand what they're like, where we come from. We should really explain it to them, and really trying to protect Sylvie as the respected professional she sees her as. That all culminates in Sylvie giving her a job offer in her new firm. And our season sort of ends that Emily's heart broke as Gabrielle and Camille got back together. And then because she realized she was in love with Gabrielle, but also realized she loves her life in Paris, even though it derailed her plan. We end on the decision of Emily to either leave or stay. I'm assuming they probably made her stay. I'm assuming hopefully this coming season is really about, you know, her connecting with Gabrielle again, her thriving in a Parisian context after she settled that she loves her life in Paris, despite the fact that it's hard. But it's really interesting how that sort of reflects everyone's journey. Like my first year here, I was depressed as hell. I hated my life. I thought Rotterdam was just the heart of the center, nothing else. I thought there were no opportunities here for me. Dutch people were harsh, at least in my opinion back then. I didn't really understand the directness of Dutch people. I couldn't understand the new university system. I felt very lost. But then I've come to the conclusion that that's part of growing up. That's part of finding yourself. That's part of finding your footing. And that journey only enriches you. And it all got better. I met a few friends the same way Emily met Mindy and connected with them, a few international friends. I made a few connections to my heart. I prepared a great life. I started this channel to connect with you guys. I thrived and finished my bachelor's. Now I'm in my master's. I found my footing here, and I could not imagine what my life would have been like had I not come to the Netherlands. It's a really beautiful country, and it's a place I consider home. So it's just, I really think if you're ever thinking about moving abroad, watch Emily in Paris and watch it very closely, because it will give you a bit of a sense of experience of what that's really like. And yeah, we'll see what season 3 brings. I'll be sure to make a video if I feel like it connects to what I've said here. If you love this video, please consider subscribing so that we can stay in touch. And take a look at one of my other videos. Take a look at one of my other videos on culture shock, because I've done quite a few of those. So yeah, I'll see you there.